Hello there, cat people. Welcome to episode 5. Wow, 5 of the Shelter Cats podcast. The completely amateur, unprofessional, partially scripted, although I have a script today, podcast all about the shelter cats that have changed my life, and I hope one day can change your life too. Adopt, don't shop. And before we begin, or rather continue our story of Tyler the cat, that's what the script is about. I did a little cleaning up of all the social media links to try to be a little more serious about this. So I made it easier to find me. If you're really enjoying this podcast and you have a question or a comment, or if you'd like to just tell me about your cats, because I would love to hear about your cats. How many cats do you have? What do they look like? What are their personalities? Tell me the story about how you found them. Did they make an impact on your life? I want to know. So to find me on Facebook, the page is called Shelter Cats. Just search Shelter Cats and you'll find the Facebook page. The website is tylerthecat.com. You could email me, dan@tylerthecat.com. You can find me on Instagram at Shelter Cats Podcast, and on TikTok. Yes, even though I might be a little too old, I waste way too much time on TikTok. So we have a TikTok, also Shelter Cats Podcast. And the blog is on Medium at sheltercats.medium.com. sheltercats.medium.com. So that's a little easier. Everything's Shelter Cats now, Shelter Cats. You could find me wherever you want. I would love to hear from you. I really, really would. And you know, I looked at the stats for the podcast, and I have a few listeners overseas in the UK, in India, in other countries that I forget at the moment. I am so grateful. We just passed 50, me and my cats just passed 50 listens. Hey, in my little world of I'm doing this for fun and I'm doing this to spread the word about shelter cats, I think that's a pretty damn good little milestone. So to those of you that are listening and spreading the word, thank you so much. It really just means the absolute world to me. So without further ado, on with the story. So we're going to go back to Tyler's story. Tyler is my very first shelter cat, and I think he's worthy of an entire podcast series, basically. I should have called this Tyler the Cat, the podcast. But literally, I would not be making a podcast about cats today if it weren't for him. I would not. My passion for cats really took shape when I brought him home. So we're going to go back in time with me to December 9th of the year 2000. Just a whatever day, probably chilly, on Long Island in New York, the day I brought Tyler home. The day that I decided, or rather decided for me, because you never really choose, to take my first cat home. So we're going to go back to the very moment where Tyler basically made the decision, and I was in Little Shelter on Huntington on Long Island, and we go back to the story. And that's where, rattling the pages, the script comes in. I turned to Gail and exclaimed, "Tyler's the one, obviously." I didn't have much choice in the matter. He had chosen me, and that was that. Yes, I see that. Gail was happy. Gail was the employee with the 9 cats at the little shelter, if you remember. I was happy. He seemed like just the cat I was looking for. Gail brought me to a back room, kind of like an office, to sit down and fill out an adoption contract. Yes, there was a contract full of clauses like, we have the right to inspect your home and the animal's living conditions at any time. Yeah, sure, come over. My mother cleans every day, and she will probably offer you a bagel with lox. Bagel with lox, I missed those. Another clause was, if you declaw this animal, we reserve the right to prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. Whoa. I called Gail over. Gail, can you put a note on this clause since he's already declawed? I don't want to get in trouble. She did. Whew, okay. Tyler hung out in the room I was in, which also doubled as a laundry for all the cat beds and towels. Above the overworked washing machines were several shelves with folded up towels and stacked cat beds. I'm sure you can imagine that. Despite this being the laundry and the office, each clean cat bed and each pile of towels had, a cat curled up and asleep on it. They really were cats everywhere. Trust me, if you even had a small semblance of an allergy, you would not have made it out of this cattery alive, and I promise you that. Of course, Tyler kept me company as I filled out the application. More than that, in fact. He waltzed in, jumped on the highest spot, a cat tree in one corner of this room, and literally shoved the cat that was asleep in what became his spot down to the floor. That cat ran off confused. I couldn't help but get a big kick out of that. He wanted that spot, and he was going to get that spot. Tyler had quite a pair on him. That was for sure. I filled out the application, signed it, paid the adoption fee with gusto. As I had no cat supplies at home, I let Gail know I would be back as soon as they opened the next morning with a carrier to take Tyler home. And she respected that. I gave Tyler another scratch on the head and reluctantly left. Tyler followed me to the door as if to say, whoa, you're not coming? Where are you going? I'm not going home with you? Well, no. I wanted everything to be prepared. Anybody who owns a cat and has brought a cat home knows what I mean. Besides, that was what Cats for Dummies said. Remember, I read that book cover to cover. I still have it somewhere. Prepare their food, their litter, their toys. And that's actually a very good tip. So they acclimate to their environment faster. I've tried to be a by-the-book kind of guy, so that sounded like the way to go to me. And side note, when you first bring a cat home, to your home for the first time, the best thing to do is always make sure the litter is ready, make sure the food and water is ready, and when you release them from the carrier, make sure you release them right next to the litter box. In my experience, that tends to cut down on any litter accidents down the road because it immediately imprints in their brains, okay, that's where my litter is, that's where I know to go to the bathroom. Cuts down on problems in the future, trust me. Back to the story. I was so excited, really more excited than I'd ever been in my entire fucking life. Tyler was my pet, my first ever really pet. I loved Casey, my dog, and I always wished I had been more involved, but she really didn't count as my dog. My parents chose that dog. I chose Tyler. I mean, I sort of did. I've said this a few times. He walked up to me, but you get the idea. My first real pet. I wish it was the next day already. My next stop, the nearest pet store, where I proceeded to buy everything. A litter box, litter, food, toys, brush, bowls, cat carrier. I spent a fortune. Caution be damned, I wanted Tyler to want for nothing. My cat was going to be spoiled rotten. I finally went home, ate a quick dinner, and set all of Tyler's things up. It didn't take long for my parents to start the questioning. So, Daniel, my mother said, tell us, do we have a cat? Again, my mother, picture a Brooklyn Jewish accent, so my name sounded more like Dan Yol. Yes, Mom, Dad, we have a cat. His name is Tyler. You have a cousin named Tyler, you know, my father reminded me. Genuinely excited, but his usual sarcastic self. Tyler the human. I still refer to him by that name. And he lives in California now, and, you know, we talk every now and then. Mom, Dad, he'll get over it. I'm going to get him tomorrow and bring him home. I wanted to make sure everything was set up first. Is he cool? My father asked. Yeah, he's got swagger, that's for sure. I think he'll fit in well here. Now, he doesn't have claws, right? My mother asked. Again, we've discussed this. I would never declaw a cat. I'm against that. But an already declawed cat was part of the bargain. Yes, Mom. He has all 4 paws declawed. It's a little drastic, but that's how they got him at the shelter. What color is he? My mother asked, ever the interior decorator. Well, he looks more like a tuxedo. He's got black, and he's got white feet, and he's got a white bow tie. Oh, but you had to get one that has such dark fur, it's going to get all over my furniture. Now, my mother has nothing against any cats of any colors or any people of any colors. My mother just invented the term clean freak, and my mother is also the most superstitious human being on the planet. So any black cat, she was already nervous about. I guess she was worried that Tyler was going to cross her path. Ma, I replied, always calling her Ma, I was going for personality. I really wasn't concerned about what their color was. And trust me, you're going to love them. Okay, sounds good. You want to watch a movie with us? My father was, and probably still is, the king of being sedentary. Conversations that didn't interest him merely kept him from watching TV and flipping the channels. Mind you, this was in 2000 before anything streamed, so you still had to kind of deal with commercials. You even had to watch a movie on a disc in those days. Sure, you want to watch Star Trek 2? Was probably what I asked, but I actually don't remember. But I mean, come on, that's the best Star Trek movie ever. As is my habit, when I'm very excited about something, I barely slept. I was just too excited. My last night without a pet. How the hell could anybody sleep? I eventually did nod off, but I woke up on the very day that I was bringing Tyler home, December 9th of 2000, Saturday, before 6 a.m. in the morning. Son of a bitch. The shelter doesn't open until noon. What the hell am I going to do for 6 fucking hours? You know, come on, guys. You know, when you're looking forward to something and the time just drags on and you're looking at the clock and barely any time goes by. So I did everything I could. I cleaned, I showered, I probably even read War and Peace. But eventually it became time to come to the shelter. Off I went in my dad's SUV. Why not take my own car, you asked? Well, this was 2000. And my father's car had a, drumroll please, a car phone. You remember those? It was like a, actual phone with a squiggly antenna coming out of the back. My dad worked in Manhattan at the time, and there was no better phone, no better reception in the world than that car. So since it was way before iPhones, I wanted to make sure that I could let them know that I was on the way home. Anyway, I thought I'd look cool. So anyway, we're talking about cats. I arrived at the shelter and was quickly escorted back to the cattery. No politeness this time. I was an adopter, a rescuer. I was like a high roller in a casino. I saved one of their shelter cats and gave him a forever home. It was an amazing feeling. I'm here to pick up Tyler, I proudly exclaimed. Oh, Tyler's going home, one of the shelter employees exclaimed. That's great. He really deserves it. You're damn right he did. Just like the night before when I first met him, Tyler was waiting for me at the door. Tail in the air. He was happy. He knew something was up. This person was back, so obviously he's taking me home. I'm sure it's the same with your cats, but Tyler just knew. He always knew, and always knew ever since that day. When I was going away, when I was leaving for work, he just knew when things were up. Gail walked up to me all smiles. He's waiting for you. That he was. They should have put a little jacket and suitcase on him with the term, Dan or bust. I knelt down and placed the carrier right in front of him and opened the door. Tyler walked right in and curled up. That was it. He was no struggle, no having to jam him into the carrier. He knew he was coming, and he was my cat. Gail hugged me. A few of the shelter employees said their goodbyes to Tyler. Had this been more recently, they would have posted him to Facebook, but this was in 2000. And we were off. The whole ride home, Tyler meowed and meowed. Happy meows, curious meows, as if to say, so tell me about where I'm going to live. How many toys did you get me? How many cat pets did you get me? You know I only eat Science Diet adult, right? I actually talked to him, trying to answer those questions as best as I could, letting him know how far from home we are, how happy we were. I even played some Sinatra, thinking maybe he'll like my taste in music. He actually answered some of my responses with little meows, kind of as if he understood me. When I was a few blocks away from home, I called my parents to let them know that we would be home in a few. When I pulled into the driveway, both of my parents were outside waiting for me. My dad ran to the car. That, in and of itself, surprised me. I never expected my dad to be surprised about having a cat in the house, but there he was. ear-to-ear grin, could not wait to see this cat. My mother, who never was not nervous about anything, was a bit more cautious. "Is that the cat?" my dad asked, already knowing the answer. I hold up the carrier to them. "Mom, Dad, meet Tyler." My mother was the first to take a look in the carrier. Tyler sat up with curious and alert eyes and stared right back at her. "So, what do you think? Isn't he cute?" "He looks so serious." "What does that even mean?" I asked my mother. "Serious? A cat doesn't smile. They always look serious." "I don't know. He looks like an owl or a bandit. He has a serious look on his face, like he's going to rob a bank." "I think he's cool looking," my father replied. Well, thank God at least he shared my opinion. "Let's bring him inside." Inside we went. Now, as I said in previous episodes, we were living pretty well in those days. My father had a decent paying job. My mother had several credit cards and a large amount of credit. And me, well, I was just starting out in the museum world as a budding museum curator. What's a curator? I never found out. I don't do that anymore. After a lifetime in Brooklyn, we had escaped to Long Island in late 1996 to a newly built large house. I never actually knew the type of house. It was ranch, split ranch, colonial, imperial, continental. I'm not a realtor. It was large and had 3 floors, skylights, a hot tub in the master bath, a built-in sound system, way before Sonos, and a large pool with an electric cover. It was a nice fucking house. The basement in and of itself was 3 times the size of my current apartment. In many ways, I missed that house. I missed that pool. I miss having rich parents. I wasn't spoiled. All right, I was spoiled, but I still miss it. It was decided that Tyler would be confined to this large basement until he gets used to things. Mind you, confined was hardly the term. There were 2 couches, a wall-length bookcase, and a wall unit, full carpeting, a ping pong table, and a full marble bathroom with shower. Trust me, Tyler was not being confined. We all went downstairs to the basement, my mother closing the door behind us. Cats for Dummies said to let the new cat right out by the litter box, so they know where it is and they don't shit on everything. At least that's the theory. It somehow imprints on their brain or something. Apparently with a kitten, and this is true, fun fact, you need to even go as far as putting them in the litter box and digging the litter with their paws so it becomes instinctual. Hey, no matter. It beats having to walk a dog in the freezing cold at 5 a.m, right? Sorry, dog people. Finally, the moment was here. Everything was ready. Food? Yes. Litter? Yes. Cat toys and beds? Yes. All right. All right, guys, here we go. "Let him out already, Dan," my father said. I opened the carrier door. Tyler strode out as if he already owned the place. As any cat owner knows, it's quite common, even expected, for a cat to run and hide the second they are brought into a new home or environment. Cats are very territorial, so anything that's different will sometimes make them nervous, make them scared, and it will take time to acclimate to a new environment. Some could take days, some could take weeks, some could take months. Many of the cats I've had since Tyler have taken months and months and months. Some immediately. If done right, a cat is slowly introduced into a new environment, 1 room at a time, until they get used to the lay of the land. Oh, of course, each cat is different and adjusts at their own pace, but most of all, you need patience. None of those rules applied to Tyler. Tyler was, without a doubt, the happiest cat on earth on that early Saturday afternoon in early December of 2000. His tail straight in the air, which means I'm happy, as he began scoping at his new territory. His purr was so loud, you would have been able to hear it from the International Space Station. He smelled and rubbed everything, climbed every possible surface, and left his mark on every piece of everything. Once that was done, he jumped right on the ping pong table and proceeded to rub, purr, do backflips, wriggle on his back, and headbutt us nonstop, literally for the next 2 hours. I kid you not, 2 hours. This was the happiest cat on earth. He was thrilled to be home with us, just thrilled. I have to tell you, my father could not stop smiling. This man, this Pop of mine, I don't call him Pop, who always said no to me for years when I would ask over and over for a pet, was giddy as a kid in a toy store, or me in an Apple store. You weren't kidding, Daniel. I like his style, my dad said, beaming. He hadn't been this happy since the last George Carlin HBO special. Oh, I miss George Carlin. Like I said, TV was very important to my father. Still is. He's cute, but he's going to get black hair all over the furniture. My mother was less convinced. A little standoffish even though she was loving the attention. My mother even went so far as to thank Tyler every time he would rub and headbutt her. That's actually true. I'm reading from the script, but every time Tyler would headbutt my mother would go, "Oh, thank you, Tyler." My mother, over and over again. And my mother pronounced it Toila. Sorry, Mom. Ma, you don't have to be so polite. I said, laughing. Cat's rub. He's marking you as his territory. Oh, okay. She didn't quite read cat yet. Finally, after 2 hours of feline bliss, Tyler found a red easy chair that was on one side of the room, curled up, and was out cold, purring in his sleep. My mother went back to business. Danielle, I have bagels and whitefish spread. Are you hungry? Dumb question. I was always hungry. Sure, let's eat. Those 3 words were the happiest words my mother ever heard. He looks like he wants to sleep anyway, my father, justifying his desire to eat and watch cable and probably check the weather forecast. My father rarely did anything outside. Why he needed to check the weather 200 times a day was beyond me. Did he have a crop somewhere that he was hiding from us? I never found out. I was hungry, sure, but I felt more than hunger. It was just an amazing feeling. I cannot exaggerate enough the emotions that were overcoming me. After 17 long years, I finally had a cat of my own, in my home, a young, healthy cat that will bond with me and be my pal, my confidant, my best friend, who will love me unconditionally no matter what I looked like or what mood I was in. There is nothing in the world to truly describe the feeling of rescuing, saving a shelter animal and giving it a home, a forever home. It's just the best feeling, and I have had the good fortune to have experienced that feeling many, many, many times in my nearly 5 decades on this planet. Knowing that you saved an animal from a stressful, harmful environment, even death in the case of some shelters. Knowing that he had a home with me and being able to experience Tyler's true joy was the best feeling in the world. Seeing Tyler's joy at knowing that this was his home now and he would never have to be in a shelter again as long as he lived was the most heartwarming emotion I have ever felt. Better than sex, yes. Better than wine, better than the finest meal on the planet. Will I ever really know what Tyler's life was before I adopted him? No. I'll take Gail's word for it. But you never really know for sure if they're just laying it on a little too thick to get you to take him home or not. I didn't really care. What mattered was his life from that point on was going to be a great life. I owed that to Tyler. I would see to that. I let my parents go upstairs first and went over to Tyler. He was already in a deep sleep, curled up and purring gently, the picture of contentment. I love you already, Tyler. You're my boy. You will want for nothing. It's just you and me from now on, kid. He looked up at me, squinted his eyes, and purred. I scratched his chin, and he closed his eyes and lifted his head, signaling his enjoyment at having his chin scratched. Then Tyler went back to sleep, the happiest cat in the world. And that's the day that Tyler came home. I hope you enjoyed that. This is the longest episode I've recorded yet, but I'm just having a blast with this. Once again, you could find me Facebook at Shelter Cats, TikTok and Instagram, Shelter Cats Podcast. The website is tylerthecat.com. You could email me, dan@tylerthecat.com. You can also... That's about it. Oh, Medium, Dan Tract. No, that's not my Medium. Medium is sheltercats.medium.com. I'm not going to re-record the whole thing just to fix that little error. Medium is sheltercats.medium.com. You could also get to it through tylerthecat.com. And coming up later this month, hopefully, I'm going to have my first guest who is a good friend of mine that runs a local rescue group on the island. And you'll be able to hear her stories, how she got into rescue, and the challenges and ups and downs that local rescues face. I'm going to leave you with one little tip, because I always leave you with a tip. We can't all adopt 800 cats, otherwise we become hoarders. But if you have some spare time, volunteer at a local cat shelter or a dog shelter. If you have some time, they always need volunteers. I've spent a lot of time over the past few years volunteering as a socializer. We basically just go to the shelter and sit and spend time with the cats. This is also good for people who may not be able to take a cat home. I mean, there are some of those people. I'll never understand you guys, but if for any circumstance at the moment you can't have a pet in your home, maybe you're in an apartment that doesn't allow pets, volunteer at a cat shelter or a dog shelter and just sit and spend time with them. It will help them get homes because they'll get more and more used to humans. Just sit with them, play with their toys with them, interact with them, let them curl up on your lap for a little while. Bring a book and just sit and read your book and let the cats just kind of curl up with you. Those cats will get homes and they'll appreciate having that love that you'll give them. And even better still, if you have space in your home, consider fostering a cat. Give it a thought. I suck at it. I've failed 3 times, but consider fostering a cat. That's all for today. We'll see you next week where we will continue Tyler's story. Have a great week, cat people.